For those who have visual, he's the number one player on my board. This was my, my Bible yesterday. He's the headliner on my top 100, and I got to about 200 players, Zach, 215 players. But the point is this: Caleb Downs. I was looking at my old notebook, Zach. We love to write. He was the first person that I wrote up. So, and I wrote him up like twice. Caleb Downs is a Cowboy. The interesting thing I want to give a shout out to my buddy Double Move Zach here. We're at the mothership. The thing is, I thought that offense would be at the forefront, Zach, in the top 10, but the run was really interesting. Like Arizona drafting Jeremiah Love, interesting. The Titans going Carnell Tate, Zach. So all of these things, I feel like, and the Giants, right? I mean, I love CeCe Malinois, but I thought for sure that was we were cooked. And CeCe's a great player. He's not a better player than two from Ohio State. So I think the point is, for me, Zach, things really worked out in your favor as far as the run on offense. But I started to get this vibe, and I don't know if you got this vibe, Willie. It was, hey, man, the Cowboys defense is really bad, but some of these teams have some bad offenses, Zach. Like, they need weapons, they need pieces, they need to score, they need to put fans in the seats. Jeremiah Love is going to bring Cardinals fans out. Carnell Tate is going to have Titans fans excited, and so, even the Saints going Tyson, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you couple that, we in Dallas land, man, we got enough. We got enough offense to go around, right? And so I think that when you look at it and you end up with Caleb Downs on your team, he's a force multiplier. He's going to be a leader. It's infectious. Nick Saban was on with McAfee, and one of the things that he said, and it was just so, he would have been the best player as a freshman. This is Nick Saban saying this. He doesn't have to endorse a guy like that. I mean, it's overkill because he's going to be held accountable if it doesn't hit. So the fact that this is Nick Saban, this isn't me, this isn't Wooly, this is the great Nick Saban saying that the minute he walked into Alabama, he would have been the number one freshman if he would have came out and he would have came into the NFL. So I'm excited to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Cowboys. I mean, we could tell just being inside the Star there, we got the war room up, and they were clearly working the phones. It seemed early on in the process, and we had actually heard, okay, do they have something lined up with Kansas City at 9 to do that flip where it was going to be 12 and 20, and they get back 9 and 29, and Kansas City was going to kick in an extra fourth, and it was going to be for either Delane or for Downs is who the Cowboys go up for. And I don't think we knew going into last night, like, could Downs go 5 to the Giants? I think that was very, very possible. Like, we had heard the connection there. Heck, Washington might have been a team that could have taken Downs. They end up going with Sonny Styles. But we can get into the division. I do think the NFC's kind of cleaned up last night.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, I love Malik Nabers and his reaction.
It was so real, Jack.
I mean, the fear that he's – because he played against him Caleb Downs' freshman year when he was at Alabama and Malik Nabers is at LSU. I think that's all you need to know. Like, the respect. Yeah. This dude hasn't stepped foot in an NFL field yet, Foots, and Malik Nabers has his face is just sheer fear, like, oh, not this guy again.
Yeah, I'll say this, and this might be a little dig in Micah. It was like, Micah, we don't need you to tell Caleb how to be a leader. This guy's built for this. This guy, Zach, seriously, this guy, all right, I got a buddy. I was talking to him this morning, prepping for the show, and I was like, hey, I know you're big into college football. He's really big into college football. He's always on Rivals and 24/7. If you guys don't know what that is, that's a publication that ranks high school football players. And so when Caleb Downs was at Mill Creek, his running back, if you guys want to watch something, go watch Caleb Downs running the ball and playing safety at Mill Creek in Georgia. Now, mind you, Georgia football is up there with Florida football, up there with Texas football. Like, these are the big three. This isn't – you're not playing a bunch of Lulus. You're playing guys, right? And Caleb Downs is like – he looks like a creative player out there. And so the thing is, I said this, Zach, and we've said this every time you've been on with me, premium talent. It's one thing when you get a, Xavier Woods in the 5th round, in the 6th round, wherever it may be, or you get but getting a premium talent. And speak to your point about Neighbors, I read body language. Neighbors was serious. Like, he was like, he said it in such a calming way. He was like, bro, he's good, bro. Like, it was one of those like, no, he's really good. And so he's going to be hunting back there. Caleb is physical. He plays the game in that way. And I've said it. I'm going to keep saying it. We'll talk about the division. Caleb Downs was the best player on the Ohio State defense. And when things got goofy, when there were times, the Miami tape, I want to get into that, Caleb was still there. He caused a fumble on Malachi Tony, hit him so hard, and Malachi Tony spoke to that like, man, this guy is different. So we could talk for an hour on Caleb Downs, bro.
Let's do that. Let's get into what you thought and you saw from him on tape, because really it's and Malachi Lawrence is also one of my pet cats in this class. I've loved him since I got to watch him back in December, and I will say Foots is a guy that starts this process earlier than others. I mean, you're a guy that's going to put out there like early watch lists. You'll be doing this in the summer. I mean, Mansour Lane was one of the first people that was on my radar because you did an evaluation on him and we're like, hey, just previewing the corners. Delane's got the top tape right now. So make sure if you're a draft nerd like we are, plug into Foots if you're not already, because Foots to me, him and Vach. I mean, we got so many. We're spoiled. We got a lot of great content creators, and I love working with Vach on Crown Global. But Foots to me is. He's the guy. Like he's one of my favorites when it comes to draft knowledge. But what did you see? Well, hey, and I'm not trying to do too much ass kissing here, Foots, but it's just I'm just real, recognize real, and you deserve your props. You put in the work, bro. So when you go into Miami, I mean that was a knock on Sonny Styles, right? We talked about him during this process. Really, for Ohio State, that was the one game where everybody, I think, but Caleb Downs, didn't have great tape. But when you've watched him, even going back to Alabama, for those that are like, he's just always around the line of scrimmage, he doesn't cover well. What do you see when you watched him on tape over his 3 years?
We can talk about a few weaknesses, just being honest. So when I went back to 2024, which was where it was split right down the middle of him playing in the back end and down in the box. We literally had 339 snaps on the back end as a true free. Because he can play free. People need stop it. This guy can play free. And he had 339 snaps in the box. So there are times, because he's so nosy, that maybe overs will get him. He'll have to kind of slow play things, but that's because he has these elite instincts to where, he kind of just has a feel for where the ball's going to go. And there were a few times, there was one play in the Oregon game in 2024 where a deep over got him. But that was the same game where I think he had an interception. He had like 2 pass defense. So it's just like, if you wanted to nitpick, that would be a little game. If you can make a cut up of him just blowing up screens. Like, if you think that you're going to run tunnels, or if a lot of teams, when they're running these RPOs, Zach, they're looking out on the edge and they're like, okay, if we have the numbers, then we'll just whip the ball out. He's out there like a missile, and receivers don't even attempt to block him. He had a play, Zach, this just speaks to the mindset of this kid. There was a receiver trying to crack back him in the Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
He was so stout. It was down at the goal line. Zach, he was so stout, he looked like a linebacker. And he didn't move. He just gave him like a arm over, like a little no, and still forced it back inside. Like, those things, if you're really watching tape and you're going back, boop, 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 running back, boop, boop, it's like, that's just stuff that's God-given, right? Like,
Yeah.
That Notre Dame game was really good last year. Obviously, the plays that he made in the Texas game. Remember, I don't know if you remember, Zach. We were talking about Lathan Ransom last year.
Sure.
And him, Lathan Ransom, and that defense, the way they rock, the way they roll. I don't want to get ahead of myself, Zach, on this show, but be ready for 3 safety sets on this game.
Yeah. And look, talking with Bobby last night on the draft show. Their plan, it sounds like, is he's going to be their slot corner. He's going to be their nickel.
And I'm fine with that.
And I think he's absolutely capable of doing it. And I think for those that are like, the positional value thing, which for Caleb Downs, I think you throw out the window. I think it ultimately was a win for those that still say positional value matters. It does. We saw the offensive tackles, get pushed up the board. Heck, we still had 2 quarterbacks go in the top 13, right? Clearly teams still value that. But if you're like, you took a safety in the top 11 picks, well, you're also basically taking your starting slot corner. So that should help you and ease your mind if you had any concern about that. But, I mean, to me, what was one of the biggest issues in the secondary, and it's been this way for a while, but specifically the last 2 years when you've put up historically bad numbers, it's blown assignments, it's miscommunication, it's huge plays. Caleb Downs is going to be able to remedy all of that. I mean, I get you're not one player away. Caleb Downs is pretty damn close to fixing a lot of your issues on defense, man. If you were to pick one guy that could possibly get you there, it's Caleb Downs, Foots.
I think that people are underestimating how much he's going to energize the rest of the guys. I'm telling you, this is just who this kid is. He led Alabama in tackles as a freshman, guys. This isn't made up. These are facts. And, you know, I go back to Nick Saban. Nick Saban said he was one of those guys that pushes everybody. He makes you uncomfortable because of how good he is. You got to be on your game, or he's going to make the plays. Now, if you're a competitor on the defense and you are okay with this guy making every tackle, but a guy like Overshown, he's going to flourish with Caleb Downs because they're one and the same. They run to the ball, they hit, they're physical, they play with energy. This team needed energy, Zach. Throw the positional value out the window. That doesn't. Teams are going to be back in the top 10 like they are every year. Cleveland, Giants, because they're doing the whole positional value thing. What do your eyes tell you? What does the film tell you? Is this guy infectious? What does it tell you? This guy is infectious, Zach. I heard something last night, and I don't like to get. He could start on every team in the NFL. This is not Jamal Adams. And I like Jamal Adams, right? I liken him to Eric Berry, but no injury history. But to me, this is more of the Derwin James. Derwin a bit bigger. I would say he's more flexible than Derwin because, yes, you're saying he's going to play the nickel, but trust and believe, there will be looks where he will be on the roof. And we haven't even talked about, Zach, how important it is, in my opinion, that Christian Parker is here. Because here's the deal. I like Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard, he's in Buffalo, but whoever the Giants defensive coordinator is, are they saying, I'm okay with what we got? It sounds like Christian Parker said, guys, go get me this guy. And you can speak to that, Zach, because you're at the mothership and you're hearing what's going on. I want my defensive coordinator to say, go get me what I need. Go give me what I need.
Well, he definitely did. I mean, he was, look, you got to hear it in the post-draft presser where Will McClay is saying how Christian Parker's just sending him pictures of Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence. And I think the Cowboys have gotten in trouble with this, Foots, where you want to have your coaches be happy and get the players that they want, but at the same time, you need to let your scouting department do their job. And not all coaches are cut out to be talent evaluators. I think we saw that. Mike McCarthy, that was not his forte. He was not asked to do that in Green Bay. I think that's probably why you looked at the Cowboys had a dip, during the McCarthy era in terms of their hits in the draft. And they, Jason Garrett, we can say what we want about him as a coach. I think Jason Garrett was a pretty darn good talent evaluator. Brian's spoken to that many times. His dad was a scout in the league. Yeah. But Caleb Downs was the fourth player on the Cowboys board. They had David Bailey, Arvell Reese, and Jeremiah Love were the only three players ahead of him. I don't know the order, but Caleb Downs was fourth.
So they did have him over Styles, Zach?
They did. They did have him over Styles. They did. Okay. And I think the only player that they were going to consider moving up for was Arvell Reese. And I think that there might have been some, some with the Giants there. And if I'm the Giants, I'm not letting Dallas go get Arvell Reese, right? I mean, to me, and we can get into this on the other side, but Arvell Reese is a tremendous pick for the Giants. I think he's going to be great. But the fourth player on your board falls to 12. I'm going up to 11. I'm going to get him. It was a home run. It was a home run for the Cowboys. I think Christian Parker deserves that benefit of the doubt because of what we've heard of how involved he was in identifying and saying Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. And I know Brian's like, he tried to push back a little bit on G-Bag with me the other day, but how tough were those evaluations? And it's like, Foots, I think we all really liked Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I think we probably had – I had Terry Arnold and him right there just checking tags. I had Arnold a little bit better than Quinyon Mitchell, and a little of that for me was Alabama versus Toledo, right? Like I'd seen Terry Arnold do it against elite competition. Both of them were first-round grades. I thought it was crazy that both of them fell into the 20s, but they fell into the 20s. Like the rest of the league didn't look at them and say, oh my gosh, these are top 10 picks. And if they redraft today, they probably would be. So I think Christian Parker deserves that. And every single player he's been with, he's found a way to maximize that talent, even if he's playing and coaching with all pros in Patrick Surtain. I mean, Jair Alexander's never been the same player since Christian Parker left Green Bay. He had him as an all-pro. So I think they get into trouble in listening to certain coaches. Christian Parker, I don't think, is going to be one, and they certainly got two players that he's really excited about, Foots.
Yeah, Christian Parker has shown us nothing but detail. He's shown it every time Shotty talks. He says Christian Parker has been very intentional. I don't want to spoil it, Zach, but on day 2 and 3, they need to go hunt corners. I still think that they need to hunt a corner. I know Chris Johnson. You talk about giving flowers. You were one of the first people to really stand on the table for Chris Johnson, and obviously he got drafted. But they need to. I would still go and get an outside corner type, and bring that in the room. But back to the Caleb Downs of it all. Yeah, you're gonna have a guy who knows how to use Caleb Downs, and the thing that we probably haven't even talked about is how adjacent the Saban style defense is to what Christian Parker is going to run. It's very similar, right? And so it sounds like to me they're going to ask this guy to play in the box. I would look at him, if I'm Cowboys fans, the same way that you see Devin Witherspoon playing football, you'll probably see that with Caleb Downs. He's going to blitz. He's going to come from depth. He will cover. I think he's fine versus tight ends. Tight ends may post him up every now and again, but he's going to make so many plays on and around the ball, strips, tackles, chase downs, plays in the seam, plays at the next level, knocking guys out. I call this player a better version of Budda Baker. Baker,
love that.
He's been an all-pro 3 times. I don't know how you could do anything, Zach, but be elated. Again, the positional value, throw it out the window. The Giants did get a good player in Arvell Reese. They got a lot of defensive ends now that have to figure that part out, but that's their problem. I just think that the Cowboys walked away. I really do believe this. I'm not just saying that because this is the Cowboys, but they had the best draft of the first round. There's no way. And you started the Malachi Lawrence train, more flowers. Almost, it feels like 2 months ago. It feels like we've been in this process for a year. You started at least a month ago, and I was like, okay, is this real? And it feels like it's real.
On that note, let's get to Malachi Lawrence. You are listening to Love of the Star. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Zach Wolchuk alongside Foots the King. It is day 2 of the NFL draft as we celebrate and reflect on what was an amazing night 1. Of course, Love of the Star is proudly powered by our friends over at the On Time Experts. And right now, it is draft season, okay? Boards are on fire, and it's your time to prepare. They got $99 drain clear and ground level only. They got a $59 deal, AC deep clean and tune up for new customers only. So claim your offer right now. Dirt, dust, debris, they're the #1 killers of air conditioners, Foots. They clog coils, they're going to choke the airflow, they're going to strain that system, and they lead to costly breakdowns. So what you need to do is you need to give our friends, the On Time Experts, a call. When they give your AC a clean bill of health, they provide you with a no breakdown guarantee. You can't beat that. So don't wait till let the heat sack that system. Summer's going to be here before we know it. Go to theontimeexperts.com and schedule that.
Players who we could have been, satisfied with. So that's why we decided to make the move. If for some reason somebody jumped up and got Lawrence, we had another player or two that we could really have been happy with. But obviously, the fact that he fell down to us 3 spots was certainly nice, and then to pick up the 2 4s was even better.
Would it factor in your mind at all your evaluation of Mekhi Lemon as you're thinking about, do we want to move back and give Philly the opportunity to come get this guy or not? If you think he's going to be all-pro or Pro Bowler, as a rookie, all-rookie team, would that affect your decision on this trade at all?
I mean, do you know for sure in that situation, Brian, who they're coming up for? You can ask. I mean, that's what we've always talked about. From what I gathered, Dallas alerted
Philadelphia that Pittsburgh was going to take Mekhi Lemon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Dude,
then
Pittsburgh must be
Pittsburgh's
off
pissed.
at the Cowboys.
Pittsburgh's pissed. And yeah,
Jerry Dulac just wrote the article about how
Yeah.
the Cowboys were trying to get revenge on the Steelers for moving up for Ryan Shazier 12 years ago.
Oh my gosh!
Like
People don't forget, bro.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
no, yeah.
But
Evidently-
despite the Steelers
Well,
to
come
help
on.
the Eagles.
No, I know it is.
I think
it
it's
is
about
such a
getting your
reach.
2 fours. I don't think it's to spite Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the Cowboys were prospecting for value.
Yeah.
They were calling anybody they possibly could to try to recoup picks.
They took intel that they got from McCarthy's crew, evidently in the war room.
Oh my gosh, that's nasty.
I mean,
McCarthy leak got him
Got him. Yeah.
wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then so what happened is Dallas used the intel to call Philadelphia.
Hey, if you want your guy.
Yeah.
That's just
We were hearing that they want to take Mekhi Lemon. Are you interested? And I think that's why you got the pick of the 2 fours. I mean, that's why I think you got both those.
well. It went right up to the buzzer. I mean,
Yeah.
you got Mekhi Lemon on the phone with the Steelers, thinking he's going to Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
And
It's-
while on the phone
green
with
room,
Pittsburgh,
he's basically talking with Khan, the general manager with the Steelers, and then
Yeah.
his agent says, "No, you're an Eagle," and they handed him another phone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, that whole thing was wild. They're sitting there talking to him, thinking, and in Pittsburgh's side, trying to hear from other front office people, the rule is you wait till the team ahead of you officially has your pick in, their pick in,
Yeah.
before you call your pick. So, Pittsburgh handled that terribly. That's on them.
Well, I'll
That's their
say
fault.
this. This is before God, how long ago was this, Brian? It was early 90s. We took a guy named Derek Mays for a 2nd-round pick from Notre Dame. And I stayed on the phone with him for 2 hours to block calls.
Wow.
I talked to him during the draft for 2 hours until it became our pick. And then we took him.
Oh, so nobody could get through.
Nobody could get
This is
through.
before call waiting.
Call waiting, yeah.
We're getting the busy signal.
I told Derek, he goes,
We have the
well,
right
hey,
number.
man, he goes, somebody's might be. I go, no, man, we want you here in Green Bay. I go, if you just hang with me, bro.
awesome.
I talked with him on the phone for 2 hours. And then somebody walked in. Well, actually, it was Ron Wolf, general manager, walked in and goes, tell him, he goes, you still got him? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And he goes, tell him we're picking him now. I go, Derek, congratulations, you're a Green Bay Packer. But I think it was a 2nd-round pick that we have, if I'm right about that. They may look Derek Mays.
I can.
Derek Mays, yeah. But I sat on the phone with him for a couple hours just to block calls. We wanted him that bad.
Well, I'm just tickled that the Cowboys got 2 fours for moving down 3 spots and
Yeah.
still getting their guy. I think, maybe you just think of it independently, like we need his value, and if it ends up helping the Eagles, fine. But
You
I
got
think
somebody that can cover him.
looking at who's in the top 150, yeah, there you go. And Broadus is going to look at who else is on the board
Yeah.
and who the Cowboys
Zach
might be looking for.
and I'll set you up. We got you going.
Coming up here, Krusty's Corner's about 15 minutes away. How about expectations for Malachi Lawrence here, Stephen Jones?
No, he's got great length. He's really got a great get off. I think Will said it last night. He's certainly long ways from DeMarcus Ware, but he's got a unique get off like him. He's going to hit the ground running for us. I mean, I think he's right away going to be jumping in and rushing the passer for us, and what we're going to be asking him to do in the run game and setting edges. I think it's going to come naturally for him, and Christian Parker thought he could get that, between him and his staff, get that coached up right away. But I think he immediately comes in and makes an impact. To win these football games, which are usually won in the fourth quarter, you want fresh people, and to be able to add him, to the mix that we already have there at the end position, was a big deal for us to be able to get that. Obviously, we made a big trade last year where we moved away, from one of the best in the business, and certainly we're rebuilding that. We've improved because of that. We think we got one of the top interior groups in the NFL with Quintum and Kenny Clark. So, this defense, I think, is really coming together when you add Downs to the mix. Obviously, I think it's obvious to everyone had a little bad luck there in free agency at linebacker, and certainly we're, still wanting to improve that linebacker room. But, the rest of the pieces are really coming together.
Okay, do you guys share his optimism? I mean, anytime you take a guy in the first round, that's the plan, but a lot of edges bust out of the first round.
Oh.
Do you think there's any way Malachi Lawrence isn't ready to rock?
Example from last year, Donovan Ezeraku.
Yeah.
16.5 sacks, Boston College. In my opinion, one of the top 3 pass rushers. When you start to look at Carter, Green, I think Donovan Ezeraku was a guy that we all felt like that. Here's a guy that had maybe didn't have the length of Lawrence, but he has the explosiveness. He had the counter moves. Just hope the learning curve is not as small, and because it was clear that Donovan Ezeraku, he had some production in training camp. Maybe that was to the fact that they had some bad offensive tackles blocking him. We kind of saw that at times. So I would hope that and listen, I'm just going to throw it out there too. This is going to sound terrible. I think Aaron Whitecotton did a terrible job coaching these defensive linemen last year. And there's reason why he moved on. Because he listen, they regressed in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
they really did. And and you got guys like a guy like Clowney, who's a veteran player. He did what he had to do because he knows how to do it. All these young guys that needed some help, Aaron Whitecotton did not get it done.
Well, Chuck, you were a big Malachi Lawrence fan, weren't you?
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players. I mean, the beauty is he's not going to have as much pressure, assuming Donovan Ezeraku is healthy. He's going to be rotating in because you got Rashawn Gary and then Ezeraku as your starting outside linebackers right now. So Malachi Lawrence doesn't have to necessarily start immediately, but I believe in him. I'm a big fan of the player. I mean, I do think it's fair because of what happened with Donovan Ezeraku to kind of temper expectations, but I think he's a guy that could have 5 sacks his rookie season, 5 to 7 sacks, and I wouldn't be surprised about it at all.
Stephen Jones here on what they'll be doing tonight in the second round as they got to wait about 60 picks to make their third pick of their draft here, Steve.
Yeah, I think it's just as you described. I mean, we'll be all over it. We'll be following each pick. We'll be looking at the guys that, we'd normally be targeting there in the second round and seeing what happens with them. Do they fall? Do they, where they are? And then if the right opportunity arises, then you look at it. The more difficult thing for us right now is seeing what it would typically take to get up there. Somewhere in the second round, we're just not big believers in giving up 3 or 4 picks, for one pick. And so, I think it's a long shot that we get up there, especially in the early part of the top half of the second, top 3 quarters of the second is going to be difficult. But, with where our picks are located, unless you were just willing to, as I said, give up, 3 or 4 picks for one pick. And, we just don't feel like that's the right thing for us to do right now. We wouldn't totally rule it out, but certainly not something that, we're fired up about is giving up. We got 3 4s there, which will be very, very valuable to us. Certainly got a late third for Mosa, but we're excited about those picks, but, obviously it'll be difficult watching a lot of good players come off the board here in the second round.
Yeah, you're starting to get to a point in the third round especially where you're getting into dart-throwing territory and not necessarily expecting starters and thinking this might be a project to one extent or another. So if you're throwing those darts, do you guys see a shelf of players at any particular point in these next 60 picks that you prefer to be over?
Yeah.
And where is that line?
Yeah, give me 3 minutes or 2 minutes and we'll start walking you through. I think there's several pockets of players. There's some we could probably eliminate. But then there's others that, some of them do absolutely.
Tackles out of the question, like D tackling, and there's a bunch of dudes that could fall there. So, ton of options. But I'm really excited about day 3 and them 4s that you got today. I'm really excited about them.
Remember, you pick at 112, 114, and 137 in the 4th.
Yeah, I mean, I considered a move
move.
You can move back up.
Yeah, and I would. I mean, I'd consider to do that, especially if you like one of these linebackers. You know, is C.J. Allen, their guy from Georgia? Could I get him to ride with me on Jacob Rodriguez from Tech, Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, Trotter from Mizzou? I think those are the guys that I think, you know, those are plug and play. They can be instant starters. I think that maybe at 92 you could look at a Jimmy Rolder from Michigan. He's a player I like a lot. Bryce Betcher, maybe. Keyshawn Elliott from Arizona State. Maybe those are guys that you could look at. But guys, there's so many good defensive backs. Like corner is in safety. Like these guys are going to be steals on day 2, whether it's Pons from Indiana, Rivers from Duke, Bud Clark from TCU as safety. I mean, Trayden Stukes is still out there. He'll probably come off the board pretty quick tomorrow. And then wide receiver. I still think in the 3rd round, and Bobby, I think you've made the point of like they're not going to come out of the draft without a receiver. There could be, if they stay at 92, could a Skylar Bell from UConn get there? Could Elijah Surratt from Indiana, Jeremy Bernard from Bama, Ted Hurst from Georgia State's a player I love.
Hurst is going to go. Hurst will go early tomorrow.
Okay. Stribling is a guy from Mississippi State that's got a ton of buzz right now. There's a lot. I mean, where's Chris Bell from Louisville, who I think could have been a first rounder?
A lot.
But yeah, because of that, I mean, does he slide? There's a lot of really good names.
I know last week there was one team that said Chris Bell was a 4th rounder.
Okay.
Give me the picks again that Dallas that we were talking about in the 4th round. What numbers are they, please?
114 is what they got today. 37.
So they've got 112 too, right?
Yes, they do. I'm looking at that combo, 112 and 114. They could move one of those 2 picks, pair it with 92, and go up a little further.
Now, this is where I'm going to do this. I'm probably going to take that 114 or 112, and I'm going to trade it for a veteran linebacker. That's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
I mean, we talked about with the Dolphins, you know, the possibility. I think this is where, I think that the fact that they have these picks, I know there's some linebackers on this, but man, I kind of feel like, listen, if you can
get a veteran,
get both. If you want to draft a linebacker and then take one of those picks and move it for one of these, you know, there's teams out there that are interested. Let's see what's going on down in Houston. You know, circle back with them. Miami, circle back with them. It looks like Miami wants to collect picks.
Yeah.
You know, just circle back with these teams that you maybe had some conversations are. I think they're going to need to go get a veteran guy, and maybe this opportunity of moving, you know, 114 or 112 might be the ticket to do that. Plus, then take the whatever pick you don't use, and then draft and kind of get both those linebackers taken care of at one time.
And let's say one of those teams.
Brooks at Miami, right? Is who we're talking about?
I don't know. Well, I don't know that we can.
We can't talk about names.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. My bad. My apologies. My apologies.
That's all hypothetical. It's
Hypothetical. Okay, you can
Jimmy Brooks is the GM at Miami.
Yeah. I think he's on the coaching staff.
Broadus was thinking about Robert Brooks. He used to play receiver for him in Green Bay.
That's what we talking about.
South Carolina, he was a good player.
He was.
Yeah.
Well,
Coach
even
his middle name is Brooks.
let's say one of those teams wants a 3rd-round pick. They want a 3rd-round pick for one of those veteran linebackers.
Yeah.
You could take 92 and ship that off.
Yeah.
Or you could take 112 and 114 and get back into the 3rd yourself.
Sure.
There's enough value there where you could get back into the 3rd, because 92 is the back half of the 3rd round.
You know,
anyway.
Jerry Jones and them, I know they moved a 3rd for George Pickens. I mean, the 4 didn't work out for Lance. The 4 didn't work out for Mingo. But that's, now you've kind of got that. And like I say, there's teams I'm looking at, okay? I'm looking at these teams that potentially have these linebackers that teams are willing to move. Let's see. Let's entice them. Maybe go into the day thinking, hey, would you be willing to and make a run at one of these guys?
All right, so as the 1st round comes to a close, Cowboys take Caleb Downs at 11. They take Malachi Lawrence at 23. We're going to step aside and hand things over to the AT&T Media Center up here at the Star in Frisco and hand it over to the front office of the press conference following the 1st round.
Contact balance, though.
That's it. Good contact balance.
You can't fall from president.
We're done here.
Is that one of them cowboy readers, though?
That's exactly no, it's water.
Not yours, is it?
All right, Calvin. Hold on. All right. Good evening. Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. As the draft was going on, also
Got any text you in the morning?
see the ability to get Downs there at 11.
Well, we had high respect for him to
be trite, and really felt that others did too. I like those odds at I like those odds when you draft and when the Mavericks got that center. So I tried to beat them with the odds of us picking downs that this spot was. I still think they got us by percentage or point, but we beat some odds there to have him there.
Let's do a deal as Cowboys. You traded up. Can you just talk about the decision? Do you think somebody else is going to come up and get him? We just want to make sure you got your guy.
Yes, definitely. He was a prize for us sitting there. He's a prize for us sitting there with the fives, without the fives. When it would absolutely cut your heart out, and we've had it done. I've had it done. I was just thinking of the times that we've been the next pick and had somebody move up and get him. And we had every reason to think that might be happening. And so wore it for several minutes there of, well, what if there's nobody there to get him? You spent some fives you didn't need to spend. And didn't like that feeling, so we spent them. Didn't want to lose him.
Todd Archer with ESPN. Can you talk about Lawrence and how you envision him fitting in this defense with Christian Parker?
Yeah, I think, we love the ability to rush the passer. We feel great about what we have with RG and Ezaraku, James Houston, but this guy's got tremendous upside. His first step quickness, Todd, is elite. The ability to turn his toe and run the edge, as we like to call it, is, we think, elite. And then, of course, the one thing I love about the guy is he has an innate ability to attack the football while he's attacking the quarterback. And then we feel like, you need athletic edge pieces in this defense, in this division, because of the quarterbacks you're going to see. Jackson Dart, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and it's nice to have a guy in-house like Coach Brim that's been around him. But this is a guy we've been talking about a lot over the last, I'd say, week to 10 days, and had him in for a top 30, and really, really excited about getting the chance to get him.
Stephen, in 2005, you had 2 first-round picks. You used them on defensive players in Ware and Spears. This year, moving to a 3-4 like then, you used 2 defensive players in Downs and Lawrence. Is it too much of a stretch to think that was part of the thought process when you were making the move?
Well, I damn sure hope it works out that way, because that worked out in a very positive way for us. And, of course, that along with the rest of the draft, which we still got a lot of wood to chop in terms of the rest of the draft. But I do think we got 2 really good football players that, starting with Christian Parker, had a tremendous vision for what these guys could do for our defense. And I think that was so important to us that they could come in here and make a big difference. Obviously, Caleb, I think Downs has tons of versatility in terms of what he can do for us on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's playing in the nickel, being a corner, whether it's playing safety. He just brings so much versatility and in a place where we need it. So not to mention what he's going to bring in terms of bringing culture and leadership and really blending in with some of the guys that we have, which we feel so good about that we've added just of late with Quintum and Kenny. I think we're really starting to build it the right way in terms of the football character and the culture that Coach Schottenheimer wants to build around here. And so anyway, I do think it's a great start. Obviously, Lawrence has very unique skills that I think can be a big part of what we're all about here, and feel great about him and ready to roll up our sleeves and go back to work tomorrow.
John Machado with The Athletic for, when did kind of Caleb first get on your radar, and what stands out most to you about him?
When he was a freshman in Alabama, you saw him playing, and amongst all those guys, you saw somebody that was different. And then you get to see it another year, and then you get to go to Ohio State, and he's a difference-making type player, and we're very, very fortunate to get him, and I was surprised that he was there. And you look at the accolades, like when you hear Coach Saban and people talk about how smart he is, and then you talk about the importance of that. Like the other day, we were talking about how a brain works and how that fits into a defense where you have a guy that can do that. He's a multiplier. He's going to make other people better. So it was very easy to see, and I'm glad he's a Cowboy.
We had a big debate. Well, go ahead and talk to Will. Go ahead and help serious.
Do you like him regardless of what your scheme is, or do you maybe like him a little bit more because this fits what Christian's looking for?
He's a pressure player, so you would like him in any scheme. I think he adds value to the scheme because, the edge rush and some of the things that he can do, the multiplicity that he could provide for the defense. But number one's getting after the passer with speed and athleticism, and we think he can do that.
Nick Harris, Star Telegram. Downs during the draft process specifically, it's one thing to see him on the field, it's another thing to get him in the building. What stood out when you guys met with him, whether it be combine or here on the 3rd?
I'll speak, but everybody should address it because everybody had their thoughts. Our planning and discussion really focused in on either a corner or safety that could get in the nickel. And he easily was the most obvious one that could get in the nickel for us. And we dared think that he might be there available for us. So, number one, that strategically, that was very important. And then just to show you how things go, we spent, we had one player that we had a, let's say, heated discussion regarding before the draft today, and it was whether the other player went way earlier than that, but it was Lawrence or the other player, so I'm not going to get involved with the other player because he's on another team now. But still, the bottom line is that we are really we really had a player in mind that we thought had tremendous upside, that fit us, and that we could accept the downside if there were any on him. And so the only thing we didn't do that we'd hoped to do was to maybe take some more chances and let the decision on Lawrence go for about 8 or 10 more, and we trading and getting more picks so that we could add a big player. And we all decided and had it decided for us too, because the trade, our satisfaction wasn't there. So we really had these guys as far as what they could do for the defense. And if we were going to come out of here and not have addressed every hole that at least a personnel picture there could address after this draft, we tried real hard to get these two positions as well as another position on defense, and we accomplished a lot in there today.
And I'll say this, Caleb in the interview, the cool thing for us is when you bring, 8 to 10 guys in, Nick, you kind of figure out who they follow, and it was very evident that, Caleb's got that personality, that demeanor that the guys gravitate to him. I'm talking about the other players, other elite players around the country. And, we had some fun competitions that he ended up winning, and it was cool to see him in that environment, and you see his personality, and you can see why he was able to play at such a high level as a freshman at Alabama, because he's wired the right way.
Gave up those 2 fifth-round picks. Was it kind of a situation at 20 where you were maybe seeking a trade back to try to pick up more capital, or did it just kind of fall in?